Hey there, audio friends, MrAyrit here, and today we're talking bedroom speaker system, specifically the speaker system that I'm setting up in my bedroom here to go with my TV. I've got a couple of sets of speakers that we're going to look at and talk about differences between pros and cons, and then I've got about 3 different amplifiers and 2 different DACs that we're going to talk about as well, and we're going to see which ones I ended up with, so stick around. All right, we're down in the office here where we can really dive into what we've got going on with this budget bedroom speaker setup. And it doesn't have to be a bedroom. It could be any room in your house. But the idea is it's maybe a system for a space where you don't want huge speakers. I've got the Yamo SA1s. They're floor standers. I've got that out in my, kind of home theater area, and I'm very happy with those. So what I want is decent audio quality in a small, kind of unintrusive or less intrusive package for my bedroom, and it's not optimal placement either. I mean, you saw what it was. It's a couple of speakers on a dresser, under a TV in the corner of the room. So it's not going to be ideal situation, but I want good audio still, okay? So let's talk about competitors here. So the 2 speaker competitors that we have are the Yamo S803s, which I purchased those before I got the towers. Actually, I traded a set of headphones for them. I got those before I got the towers, or maybe it was after I got the towers, and I wanted to try them against the bookshelves, right? So that was just an opportunity that came my way. I traded a set of headphones for them that were worth, I don't know, 150 bucks. The ELACs I picked up on Amazon a long time ago, and I got them dirt cheap. I think I bought them for like 50 bucks open box or something like that. They're the 4-inch ELACs. They're really tiny. You can see they're compared to the Yamos. They're much, much, much smaller. Their official name is the BS41, okay? So these are very compact, and I think I picked them up after Randy, Cheap Audio Man. He got a set, and he said he thought they were pretty good for their size, and I would have to agree. So those are my 2 speaker competitors that we'll be talking about here. And then as far as source gear goes, I got kind of a few different options here that we're going to go through. So the first option here is the Topping DX3 Pro Plus. This is a DAC with a built-in headphone amplifier. So we'll talk about that. And then I've got the IEMA A07, kind of a pretty popular budget amplifier that I bought for, I think, $70 or $65. It was a deal on Amazon, like a lightning deal. The DX3 Pro Plus is about 100. It looks like 160, 170 bucks. This one is on loan from APOS though to me, so I didn't actually buy that one myself. Another competitor I have here is the Duoc Audio ST01. I think this is very similar to something like the IEMA A12, I think it is. This is, again, an all-in-one DAC amp here. And then my final one is an all-in-one DAC amp / headphone amp, and this is the Loxg A30. So it's got a headphone amp, it's got a DAC, and it's got speaker amplifier in it as well. So I know these all don't necessarily seem related, but essentially I just had the A07, I had the Duoc from trying to set up my home theater downstairs. I ultimately didn't think they were in the same league as my Fozzy or the Topping LA90 or the, the Emotiva Bass XA100, okay? Because those were other amps I tried, and I think all of those outclass all of these. And I'll link to that down below too if you want to check out that stereo amplifier comparison between those 3. So I don't think any of these compete with those as far as amplification goes. And then the other thing that I have in my main setup downstairs here is the Songcause SGD1, which again, I don't think any of these DACs compete with that one really. So these are more budget. It's more of a budget comparison here, and it's definitely a situation where you get what you pay for, at least in my opinion. Okay, so let's talk speakers really first, and then we'll start getting into source gear and the specifics of these different things. So the ELACs have a shockingly low amount of information available on them. They're a 4-inch woofer, a 1-inch tweeter. They've got, it says they're rated from 4 to 8 ohms, and at 6 ohms it says they're rated for about 80 watts, okay? That's all the information I could find on it. Very sparse. Now the Yamos have a 5-inch woofer and a 1-inch tweeter, and they also are rated up to 80 watts. They're an 8 ohm speaker, and they've got a sensitivity rating of 87 dB, and they are touted for having a 57 through 26K hertz range, okay? For the ELACs, they don't have like a frequency response range or anything like that on them as far as I can tell. Here was my experience with them. I feel like I prefer the ELACs, no question in my mind about it. I thought they threw a bigger sound stage. I thought they were more lively, more engaging. They drew me in more. I thought the imaging was better. I thought they were better separated. They just sound, ironically for how small they are, they sound bigger than the Yamos do. The Yamos, to me, lacked low end, and they lacked kind of lower mid-range too, which made them sound just a little hollow or distant. It just didn't draw me in. And then I felt like they kind of peak and have like a shoutiness to them in the upper mid-range that I didn't really find appealing. So this was especially noticeable on the topping DAC feeding the IEMA A07. But to a lesser extent with the Loxg as well. So I don't like those, and that's interesting because I really like the S809s that I have down here. So I definitely don't recommend the Yamo S803s. They're larger and they don't sound as good. So for my situation where I want a smaller, compact system, the ELACs are just the clear winners here for me. Now, the Yamos have a front-facing port, so if you want to put them right up against the wall, they may do better for you, whereas the ELACs have a rear port on them. But as far as just overall sound quality, I think the ELACs are better. And they might not resolve quite as well as the Yamos do, and I feel like the bass is a little bit looser, but also there's more quantity, and it just sounds more balanced to me. So I just all in all, I just prefer the ELACs over those Yamo speakers. So when we're talking about all of this source gear, ultimately it's going to really be how did it sound with the ELACs, because those are for sure the speakers that I am keeping for my little system here. So first off, let's talk about all these different devices, and we'll kind of talk about what they do, and then we'll get into the sound. So the IEMA's a very simple one, right? It's a straight up power amplifier. You've got a volume knob on the front, an on switch on the front, and then on the back you've got power in, RCA in, aux in, and then you've got binding posts, which are relatively cheap binding posts. It comes with a nice big chunky power adapter. You may have heard people say that you can put an external or aftermarket power supply with the IEMA and it will improve things. I did try that, and I didn't think it made much difference, in my opinion, okay? It also has swappable op amps, and I've been told that that can make a big difference too, but again, I haven't tried that. Next up, let's talk about the Duoc audio. This is obviously it's a DAC amp. It's got Bluetooth. It's got a lot going on. It does have a little remote that it comes with, although it's a very cheap remote that isn't very nice to use. You've got tone controls on it, volume. You've got, obviously it's got tubes in there. It is a solid state. Oh my gosh, something fell off there. It's got tubes, so it's like a hybrid amp design. I mean, it's mainly a solid state amp, but you got a little tube buffer in there or something going on just to slightly color the sound. And color the sound it does, I would say. You've got this little VU meter on the front, which I don't know if it's kind of gimmicky, I think, personally. But you know, seemingly there's lots of options here. Bluetooth, RCA, optical, coax, USB. So you've got seemingly everything you would want. You've got a line out. You've got audio inputs as far as RCAs go. So you got just about everything that you could possibly want in this. The problem is this thing just doesn't sound good. I didn't think. I thought it was very muddy sounding. I didn't think there was a lot of clarity there to it. I didn't think that it threw a very good soundstage. I just did not like the way this thing sounded, especially paired with the ELACs. It was just because those ELACs are already kind of bassy, and this just made it way over the top. And it was bad enough that I didn't even bother trying to roll tubes or anything like that. So I really wouldn't recommend this. Plus, the big thing for me that really, besides sound quality, made this one miss out for me is it is so sensitive to frequencies, like remote frequencies. Like every single remote that I used for all these other devices and for my TV, it messes with this thing. So it'll turn this thing on and off, it'll change the volume. It was doing all sorts of crazy stuff, which pretty much made it unusable. So not a fan of this guy. I just wouldn't recommend it at all. I'd say stay away from it if at all possible. Maybe if you get a screaming deal on it, like you could give it a shot if you're not going to be using other remotes around it. But I honestly, this one's a no-go for me. So I'm just setting that one aside. So then we come to the Schiit A30, and again, this thing does a lot. It's got a headphone amplifier that's it's okay. It's got a speaker amplifier that's okay, and it's got a DAC that's okay in it. It is all in one though, so you can run in USB, you can run in optical, you can run in coax or an external source. It does have a subwoofer out on it. And then of course you got your regular binding post there and your power in. And it comes with a pretty nice remote, probably the nicest remote of the bunch to use. I thought it was very easy to navigate. Everything's very easy to do on the Schiit. It's a very convenient, slick looking, nice all-in-one package, but its performance is just okay. It does come with also a big power cable, so that's this guy right here, okay? So another big, chunky power cable. For this guy, kind of similar to the IEMA A07, and also the Duoc has a pretty big power brick like this as well. So next up, we've got the Toping DX3 Pro Plus. Again, this is a DAC/headphone amplifier, and it does, coax, optical, USB, Bluetooth. It does all that stuff. All that worked just fine for me. And then you've just got your RCAs out. So my combination, and really what it came down to, was the Topping and the IEMA A07 versus the Schiit A30 is really what it came down to for me when I was doing my testing. And this is what I found out, and it might be what you expected. The Schiit is super convenient, very easy to use, and it sounds okay. The problem is that I think both the DAC in the Topping sounds better, the headphone amplifier in the Topping sounds better, and the amp of the IEMA sounds better than the built-in amp of the Schiit. So the Schiit's a do-it-all, but it doesn't do anything as good as the standalone things do. And so that was a little frustrating for me because I was really hoping that this would just be my simple all-in-one solution for it. But it's not as well defined. The bass doesn't go as low. The imaging isn't as crisp and clear. It's just everything's just a little hazier. This is very clear when I use the headphone amplifier as well. And the thing is like I tried. Here's how I compared it: is you can't do a line out on the Schiit, unfortunately, so it's difficult to test the built-in DAC by itself. But I thought when I ran the Toping into the Schiit, I thought it improved the sound both through the speakers and through the headphone output. So that tells me that the DAC is probably better in the Topping. And then, of course, when I just had the Topping running into the IEMA, into my speakers, I thought that was a better, clearer, crisper sound. I was getting lower bass notes. I thought tighter bass as well. I thought everything was there was more clarity kind of throughout. And I thought that the imaging just seemed a little bit crisper and cleaner. And everything just seemed a little bit better, just a level above. So as far as just convenience goes, the Schiit A30 is nice, and it's a good looking package, and it really does everything okay. But again, I think if you're willing to play around and you want to try a couple of amps and DACs and things like that, I think you can probably do better for the money, because this thing's not super cheap. I think it's maybe about $250 new, and I think I bought mine used for about $170, $180. And so when you consider that you can pick up one of these IEMA A07s for something like maybe like $65, I think I bought this new for that. And then you could pair it with some type of a DAC. If you don't need the headphone out on this and you don't need Bluetooth, you could just simply get something like an E30 and pair it with the IEMA, and I think you're going to have a better value system on your hands, as long as you don't need the headphone out, right, of the topping. But again, when I compared headphones and I used the modded Hifi R9 by JM Audio, which that thing's pretty good. That review will be coming here before too long. That's how I compared the headphone amps in these. Again, I thought the headphone amp in the topping was improved. And just, again, better imaging, better clarity, more detail, more resolution. All those things just sounded better. Okay? That seems like a lot. And so here's where I'm at with all this. If I owned the topping already, I would just be keeping it, okay? But since it's from Apos, I'm just going to send it back to them. I'll probably put my Loxgy up for sale, and once I can sell it, I'll pick up, I'll just keep an eye open for a cheaper DAC that I can use, probably like a Toping E30 or something pretty equivalent to that. And then my bedroom speaker setup will be the ELAC speakers. It'll be some sort of cheaper DAC with a remote. I don't need Bluetooth and all that stuff on it. And then I'll use the IEMA A07, and that'll leave me some room down the road to play with maybe some op amps too, as far as that goes. And then I think that'll pretty well wrap up my bedroom system. And so you're talking if I can pick up a decent DAC for cheap, like let's say $80. So $80 for a DAC with a remote, $65 for the IEMA A07. That's $140, and I think let's call it $50 for those ELACs. That's an under $200 system that sounds really, really darn good. Okay, that's gonna sound better than any soundbar, I would wager, than you're gonna put it up against. And I think that's really gonna set me up pretty well to round out my audio setups around the house here. So I got my home theater stuff done. I'll have my bedroom speaker set done. I got my Quicksilver here. I've got my RU6 DACs. I've got my Eddy Current ZDT upstairs. I've got several headphones that I like. So I really feel like I'm rounding all that out pretty well, which is good news for me because I can just sit back and enjoy the music. Okay. It seems like I'm putting a lot at you there in a short amount of time. But I hope you found it useful. Again, feel free to ask questions, chime in on your opinions if you've tried any of these pieces of gear and how you think they stack up. I always welcome all that. As always, I thank you for being with me. I appreciate you, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one.